I'm Lauren. I'm a third year film student about to graduate, but before I got here, I was all the way back at the start of my journey. I've always loved movies, shows, and television, all sorts of entertainment, especially comedy, and was fascinated with the art of it all. At first, I wanted to make sets and design shows in theatre, and then I became obsessed with films and the stories and always wanted more, and that's when I fell into television shows. They were the long stories I could be a part of. I studied at BOA from year 10 on the media pathway because ain't no way Lauren would be seen doing anything remotely boring. I absolutely love BOA, so I decided to stay another 2 years for college, this time specialising in broadcast. And for all those dummies listening, that's everything radio and television. I found a real passion for television, vision mixing, and floor managing, and actually coming up with the concept designs for multicam shows. And I was pretty good at it if I don't say so myself. From here, my aspirations and ego were huge. I wanted to be the best of the best, so I applied to the National Film and Television School and secured a scholarship from BBC to be a student on their assistant director course. Now, I know what you're all thinking, how on earth did she manage that? Well, my ethics were very strong and prominent in my day to day, not just my studies. I was determined, passionate, and hardworking. I was always told that my head was amongst the clouds. However, I faced some personal struggles and settled for screen and film school. My first year of university, I had my sights set on being a screenwriter director. I wanted to be in control of what happens to the story. I wanted to be in charge, which lines with me being a bossy boots. During this year, I took cinematography where I relearned the basics of camera. A lot of this I had learnt previously at BOA and wish it was more advanced. However, I did learn what different lenses capture and the importance of lighting, colour theory, and how to use it all together to your advantage. Next was production design, where I learnt how to measure and scale a set to recreate a model version, as well as creating genre aligning mood boards in preparation for production. One thing I took away from editing was the timing of cuts. It's something I've never been shown before, but when you cut to certain beats, it feels harsher to the viewer rather than when you cut slightly off, it feels softer. I wrote and directed the short film for the music track given to us by BIM students. Ours was called Diana, about a woman who was stuck in a rut in her relationship. I loved this work. I sat with my script open, listening to the song on repeat to get it perfect. We came across some issues with actors not being reliable, but I persevered and got my crew to act. Pre-production was something I was looking forward to, everything that goes into making a film. However, I found the lessons to be very repetitive and therefore boring, so I didn't go to pick this as a subject. This is another script I wrote for my final semester of short film. It was about a boy who, alongside his best friend, loves baseball but with a twist. His best friend is imaginary. I learnt a lot during this project as a screenwriter. The role of director was given to someone else. This was the first time where I had no creative say in the story after the script was finalised. The director made so many changes in terms of the tone of the story. It was supposed to be sweet and funny, however, it turned into a story about grief, and this was a huge lesson for me. But it has made me realise that giving up on my scripts to someone else completely is something I do not want in my career. Audio lessons were not my favourite, despite the picture, but I still gained an understanding as to what is needed from the role, like collecting room tone to make the final edit more flawless, and understanding this is important to give respect to the crew. Creative Industries is where I learnt about myself and my place within the industry. We did a personality test which breaks down my character and categorises it into personal and potential roles of what I could be good at and where my assets are best applied. As I mentioned, the creative industry class, which purpose was to understand myself as a person and who I am within the industry, there was one moment that stuck with me in this class where my lecturer told us to act as ourselves in 5 years' time at a networking event, advising us not to overthink it. I naturally said that I just left the writer's room for a BBC show and was now looking for producers to take on my own show that I've written and become a showrunner for it. I kept this defining moment in mind when I picked my specialisms. Screenwriting was my first, and I chose this to know more about the stories I would be making. For me, it's always been about the story and what it says and what it makes the audience feel. I learned about genre and how to build a structure for a successful story as well as experimenting with my own scripts. Directing was my second specialty subject. I didn't enjoy this as much, however I learned a lot of valuable lessons and skills, one being I don't really want to direct, and secondly what it takes for an actor to perform and understand the actors and the need for blocking. Experimental was hard for me. It was so different to what I like or write or am comfortable with. I found it really hard to get my head around creating a film that had no structure. I learnt so much, such as a good watch can be made from anything as long as it comes together well. I surprised myself with documentary. It was something I've always thought to as boring. However, I did really well. My doc was about the cinema I work at, and it was in administration and awaiting rescue. I interviewed the people I work with and it was from the heart. However, I don't think I'll be doing documentary in the future. Screenwriting I picked to specialise in third year as I really enjoyed what I had learnt last year. I had a bit of an identity crisis with my contents of scripts. At first I didn't know what to write and I wrote all sorts of nonsense. However, I delved into the female-led, messily relatable sitcoms. I learnt the importance of treatment, character breakdown, brief sheets and the drafts. Third year short film module means grad film. I co-wrote on a psychological thriller where Devil Wears Prada meets Don't Worry Darling. It was a huge challenge for me. The genre and its conventions were way out of my comfort zone. I was co-writing with someone else, which was very difficult as everything had to be agreed upon. However, it was really good experience and I pushed and challenged my boundaries and writing capabilities. My inspirations for screenwriting are eccentric and ruly female characters, starting with Miranda. I just love the silliness, showing that even the simplest of things can be funny, and Gavin and Stacey is a no-brainer. Fleabag's essence is the unruly woman. She's messy and unapologetic, just trying to get through life in general. She's relatable to women as the way she speaks and her fourth wall breaks are wild thoughts and the same as what women would think, feel and talk. Am I Being Unreasonable is a more recent inspiration. It's daft dark comedy, the darkness of murder and guilt mixed up with the self-deprecation creates scenarios you just can't help but laugh at. From loving these shows, I delved into how they were created and that's when I started to read the scripts. I learnt so much from these scripts, how the jokes were written and the length of writing affects the pace, therefore affecting the delivery and tone, and whether the jokes land or fall. From here I've learnt a lot and I've implemented it into my own writing. Two sitcoms featuring very unique and messy women, which I hope to perfect in the future. I worked on an independent film on location in Essex for 2 weeks. I learnt so much as a production intern. I bounced around all different departments, learning how important it is for all of the work to come together, and more importantly, the long days in co-working that needs to happen. I also met some really good connections and even more so friends. I've worked with Vermilion Films a few times as a runner on various of their adverts. For me, this was more about observing how they are filmed through a cinematographer's lens, excuse the pun, as well as the importance of AD and the cast to make sure they are looked after and all set. This has set me up for the real industry work. In my own time, I've been working on my personal photography, and this has mainly been street photography. I'm starting to branch out by collaborating with professional photographers and breaking into wedding and events. I'm starting an industry Instagram page where I'm posting my work as well as submitting them on Viewbug. I feel like I have progressed so much through my studies and over the past few years. I wanted to look at screenwriting specifically, as my first semester I was a little lost at what to write, however I eventually found my voice. Strong-willed, eccentric female comedy characters just trying to get through life, battling their personal struggles and the world around them. Just from my feedback alone from my lecturers is proof of how well I have developed and shows my passion I have for comedy writing. On a serious reflective note, I felt lost in where my career path is going for so long, and during this module and creating this presentation about myself, it really made me think about what makes me the happiest, and it isn't making films, it's television. I really struggled with fitting in at university and see my place within the industry and what assets I have to offer. I didn't really find my people at film school. I found group projects hard as I found I work better alone or as a leader. I like to be the creative director and I thought this was a downfall of mine. However, I've come to learn actually it can be used to my advantage. It's okay to have a vision and want it to be perfect. It made me realise I want to be creating my own work and be in a decision role within the production. Film school has given me the chance to hone in on the type of scripts I want to create and what I want to focus on in television. I've learned not from what I have done here, but what I have missed. I have missed live television, whether that's multicam TV shows or live shows, but what I will take away from Screen and Film School is the specifics of the type of television I want to be involved in, which is comedy. That's being a part of the writing and floor managing. I want to be making people laugh as an escape from real life, creating work that takes real life and makes it relatable, unashamed, and making it lighter and funny for people. My plans for the future, I don't want to limit my possibilities. I want to be in the writer's room for a BBC show. I want to be a sitcom writer and have my script produced, bringing myself on as a showrunner. I want to be a floor manager for Saturday night primetime television. I want to be a vision mixer for multicam TV shows, and I want to be an established photographer. Thank you.